What's up, YouTube? It's time for a review of the new Fozzy record, Judas, out this past Friday, October 13th. You know, once upon a time, these guys were called Fozzy Osbourne. Fozzy Osbourne, that was the name of this band. Of course, back then, they were more of just like a side thing for frontman and WWE superstar Chris Jericho, who, of course, as his fans know, is as diehard as they come as an old school metal and hard rock fan. And as it turns out, he's a pretty great singer too. He's clearly very influenced by the Ozzies and the Dickinsons and the Halfords of the world. But those first two Fozzy records, they were basically all cover songs of Maiden and Priest and Twisted Sister and shit. And it wasn't until Fozzy's fourth record, Chasing the Grail, in 2010, where I think people started to really take them seriously. I remember that year Jericho appeared on That Metal Show, which was my favorite show at the time, and he was promoting that record, so I checked it out, like I checked out every single thing Eddie Trunk hyped up back then. But I really liked it. It was a great mix of some old school metal with modern hard rock and a modern production to it, a modern shine to it. Songs like Under the Blackened Skies and Watch Me Shine, and probably my personal favorite, the ballad New Day's Dawn, those are all still tunes that I enjoy to this day. Jericho was singing like a young Ozzy. Guitarist Rich Ward was writing some pretty mean riffs. Like I said, the production was very modern, very polished. And the follow-up to Chasing the Grail, 2012's Sin and Bones, that had a few great songs on it too. So with the help of those two records, Fozzy had become a completely legitimate, successful, respected rock/metal band in that span of a few years. I did skip over their last record, 2014's Do You Want to Start a War? No particular reason, really. I just remember it coming out like in the middle of the summer that year. It was right around the time that Judas Priest dropped a record, and Goat Whore, and I think Rise Against 2, and just a bunch of records that were priority for me at the time, so I just never got around to it. But I am back now for what is now the band's seventh record, Judas, out this past Friday, the 13th. And you know what? Turns out bad things do happen on Friday the 13th, because this record is fucking terrible. It is almost unlistenable for me. It is actually frightening how unhappy listening to this record makes me. The general thing that happened on this record is just that the band went for this totally neutered, overproduced, sterile, just impossibly dumbed down radio rock sound. But instead of having to just walk you through that step by step, let's just start with the biggest catastrophe on this record, and we'll go from there. A song called 3 Days in Jail, which is perhaps the most dramatic demonstration of the awfulness contained in this record. I don't know how else to describe this song other than just an absurdly corny, failed nu metal attempt. And when I say nu metal, I mean rapping and all. I mean guitar playing that makes Limp Bizkit's Wes Borland sound like Eddie Van Halen. I mean horrific mallcore synthesizers that are as prominent as the guitars are. I don't know who thought this was a good idea. I don't know if I want to know. It's just really upsetting that not only does this song exist, but I've had to sit here and listen to it multiple times over and over again. I don't even think this would have been a good nu metal song in 1999. And hearing it in 2017 is almost confusing. I can't even really find the words. And while 3 Days in Jail may be the outlier, it may be the most extreme example of awfulness on this album, the rest of this fucking album is still full of completely unwelcome and completely unnecessary synthesizers and like digital dance beats that I guess are meant to take the place of interesting guitar riffs or interesting musicianship in general, for that matter. And when the guitars do show up, they're just these painful nu metal and post-grunge riffs, just these completely clunky, elementary, like Nickelback type riffs. Maybe the good ones sound like Korn. And for evidence of every point that I just made, just listen to a song like Burn Me Out with those stupid fucking computerized drums doing some sort of like really some sort of fucking dance groove. And the guitar riff, which really could have been on a Nickelback album, kind of reminds me of the Nickelback song Burn It to the Ground, you know, since I'm such an expert on Nickelback's catalog. Or how about another one of my nightmares on here, the song Weight of the World, which I swear to God, I almost vomited the first time I heard this song. It's got everything. It's got every piece of the puzzle, from the dunderheaded guitar chugs to more processed drums to these super corny whoa-oh vocals, which they're whoa-oh vocals that are carried out with a super generic, super familiar melody. And the awkward mix of these like pseudo-funk guitars in the middle of everything, it just makes things worse. And we've got more remarkably original whoa-oh vocals in the bridge to the song Wordsworth Way, which I will say, on this song, Jericho is clearly pushing himself as a vocalist. And it is one of the better cuts on here because it also does achieve a certain dark mood in places. Then a song like Painless is basically a Papa Roach B-side, especially with the hyper predictable construction of that chorus. The song Elevator is, I guess, a party rock attempt with more of these completely unwelcome electronic effects that, like, they don't at all add some sort of intriguing industrial vibe or anything like maybe a Marilyn Manson record would. They just sound like bullshit. They just sound like bullshit that is even too formulaic and too radio pandering for like a Hot Topic store manager to throw on. And like I've already established, the rhythm guitars on this record, when they do show up, because I'm not trying to make this record out to be like some sort of electronic thing like Star Set, it really still is clearly a rock record. When the rhythm guitars do show up, they're all just sulking bottom end, and the drums are so processed and so digital that it really takes the life and the kick out of these grooves. I do enjoy the heavy main riff to the song Capsized. I do think that some of the last minute metal attempts on the song Wolves at Bay are pretty decent. And hey, you know, Rich Ward has a fucking ripping guitar solo in the song Drinking with Jesus, some real fiery licks in there. But I hate this album. It's not for me. From where I'm sitting, it is overproduced, radio rock garbage, and there is nothing interesting or redeeming going on 95% of the time. You know, I usually feel bad criticizing albums, especially when it's from a band that I've enjoyed in the past. But at this point, I'm just so angry that I've spent all this valuable time listening to this fucking record. I knew I should have listened to the Enslaved record first. I knew it. These men are in their 40s and they're making music for 10-year-old boys. I think the audience for this record is the butt rock crowd, and only that crowd, which, hey, that is a very large consumer base, which is why I think that, you know, despite my distaste for it, this record is going to be very successful. But yeah, other than that, I can't talk about this record anymore. I'm all tapped out. Excuse the wrestling pun. Judas gets a 3 out of 10 from me. As always, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, or shoot me a message so we can continue to talk music, and I'll see you guys soon.